to the January 16th, 2024 meeting of the Ann Arbor Parks Advisory Commission. This meeting will be broadcast live on CTN Cable Channel 16 and also is online at a2gov.org/watchctn. To speak at public comment, you can call toll-free 877-853-5247 or another of the published numbers and enter meeting ID 940-7190-7291. And with that, we are ready to call the roll.
All right, Commissioner Bush.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Cavateo.
Present Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Kraut.
Present Ypsilanti.
Commissioner London.
Present in Ypsilanti as well.
Commissioner Marson.
I'm here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Montague. Absent. Commissioner Perlowski. Absent. Commissioner Skyless.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Smith. Absent. Councilmember Redina. Councilmember Watson.
Present in Ann Arbor.
And here is Councilmember Redina.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Wonderful. Great to see everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll go ahead and get started with the approval of our agenda for today's meeting. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll continue with our first public comment session. As usual, we very much welcome public comment. PAC does not respond to public comment in the moment, but that doesn't mean we don't value the comments that we receive. We value them very greatly and welcome them. Do we have any callers?
We have no callers for public commentary.
Okay, thank you. We'll have another public commentary period at the end of our meeting. Moving on now to approval of our minutes. Actually, I'm looking at our agenda and I see a 3A where we've got, I think we inadvertently omitted in December, at our December 19th meeting, we inadvertently omitted the approval of our meeting agenda for that meeting. Did anyone have any changes or additions to our last meeting? I just wanted to be sure that we covered every topic that we needed to cover last month. All right, hearing none, we will go ahead and make sure that we have approved our meeting agendas both for last meeting and this meeting. Now we will go ahead and try to approve our minutes from the last meeting. And for that, we need a motion. So any discussion or a motion? Anne?
I had one correction,
Yes.
that the meeting was called to order by Commissioner London and not by me.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thanks for that correction. We will take that correction, and then once having made it, are there other corrections? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve last meeting's minutes? Go ahead, Anne.
Yeah, motion, so moved.
Wonderful. Is there a second? Vincent, I saw your hand first. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signal by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Our minutes are approved. Today we have one presentation on some updates to Chapter 42. And we've all received materials in advance. Remy is going to take us through some of these ordinance revisions and talk about any questions that we might have. So take it away, Remy. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For those of you that may not recall, I'm Remy Long. I'm one of the deputy managers with Ann Arbor Parks and Rec, and I have the privilege of overseeing all the open space and parkland preservation millage activity, which I'm going to cover some ordinance revisions related to that programming here today. So the open space and parkland preservation millage, often called the Greenbelt millage, was passed with 67% of voter support in 2003. Try and move through these slides. So the 0.5 mil 30-year tax levy generates approximately $1.8 million annually. For the breakdown here, after the debt service to the initial bond has been paid. So we have 9 years of millage revenue remaining. So approximately another 16 million over that is expected to be collected. As a reminder, by council resolution, the millage proceeds are divided into 2 buckets: 1/3 for the purpose of acquiring parkland, and 2/3 for acquiring land and land rights in the city's Greenbelt district. This means approximately $600,000 a year is generated for parkland acquisition and around $1.2 million for the Greenbelt program. The use of those millage funds is governed by Chapter 42 of the City Code. With those funds since 2003, the city has acquired approximately 172 acres of parkland, which constitutes about 8% of the city's 2,200 acres of parkland. And the funding has permanently protected over 7,600 acres of land surrounding the city within the Greenbelt district. In 2003, when the Greenbelt was being envisioned, leadership set the goal of a program to deliver on 7,000 to 10,000 acres of permanently conserved land surrounding the city. And so 20 years into the 30-year millage, the Greenbelt has surpassed that floor and is on track for hitting the ceiling of those expectations. So as a city ordinance directly tied to your advisory duties on PAC, staff wanted to bring you all up to speed on the proposed changes before you. So before discussing any specific aspects of these revisions, I want to speak broadly about what led to these recommended changes. So I joined the city in 2018, and it was evident when I joined that a discussion around Chapter 42 ordinance revisions long predated my arrival. So with that, some of what you see in that red line document that was sent out may be 7 to 10 years in the making. As I discussed staff's changes or desired changes to Chapter 42 with the city attorney's office, more and more recommended changes became evident to align our program administration with best practices in the industry and to reflect the needs and the lessons learned of a now mature 20-year-old Greenbelt program. With that, we kept holding on to these iterative revisions until we felt we finally reached a comprehensive set of proposed revisions for PAC, GAC, and City Council's consideration. So the vast majority of Chapter 42 is concerned with the administrative parameters for the Greenbelt program's use of these millage funds. This can be attributed to the Greenbelt's unprecedented context in the community and its rarity on a national scale. It was a pioneering vision for land preservation efforts led by a city surrounding a city back at that time in 2003. And to assuage some public concern and maybe misunderstanding about what the use of these millage funds would entail and be used for, a robust ordinance was developed that provided exceptional detail as to how the funding would be administered. As such, you'll see the majority of the staff recommendations pertain to the Greenbelt program matters, with the most substantive changes taking place in the following sections. So a twofold amendment to the Greenbelt district boundary, an adjustment to the administrative funding cap, changes in standards for reserved rights within city-held conservation easements, and Greenbelt application scoring criteria. So I am happy to talk about any questions you might have related to ordinance changes pertaining to the Greenbelt, but you should all know that the Greenbelt Advisory Commission held a robust discussion about these proposed changes at their meeting last Thursday. And after their extensive review and discussion, they voted unanimously to recommend all of these Chapter 42 revisions to City Council. So now it turns to you, because Parks Advisory Commission does have duties detailed in Chapter 42, albeit minimal. So as I emailed you all last week, the substantive changes to Chapter 42 pertaining to PAC is contained within sections 366, 367, and 375. So if you have any questions about those sections, they are mostly clarifying, reordering things, but if there's and non-substantive and material to PAC's oversight of the open space and parkland preservation millage funds. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those right now. And we are, I should make clear, comfortable. If you're not comfortable making a recommendation at this time, that is completely fine. It can be delayed until next PAC meeting if you'd like more time to review and sit on some of the Q&A that might take place here. But if you are comfortable based on the Greenbelt Advisory Commission's recommendation, your review of what has been sent prior, if you're comfortable making a recommendation, I do have a resolution prepared that mirrors the Greenbelt Advisory Commission's language from last week. So questions and discussion?
Ruth, go ahead.
Commissioner Crowe? Sorry.
Hi, Remy. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I understand this. I mean, there's a lot of lineouts and stuff.
Yeah.
And the discussion about adding Ipsy Township to the Greenbelt, and I understand that the ordinance more generally looks at not just the city of Ann Arbor, but also the broader kind of Washtenaw County area contiguous to us. I would just like to understand, I think it's 363, that might be wrong, but where it's talking about the PAC-LAC acquisition, and what does that say? Is it only within the city, or is it, does this change that in any way? I know that we do have some properties like Marshall that are outside of the city limits, so I've never really fully understood how that worked anyway, but.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So a brief celebratory moment as part of the answer to this is, if you'll recall, many moons ago, you all made a recommendation on contributing 50% of the acquisition price to an oxbow just upriver of the city. It was the John Russell Oxbow, and it has recently been acquired by Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation Commission, and so will be added to their park system. And that's a really good example of, in the ordinance, the structure that's given to how PAC might consider contributing funds to acquisitions outside of the city limits, but are more applicable to parkland than they are to the Greenbelt private land preservation measures. So that oxbow was outside of the city limits. And so what the ordinance sets in place is a revised, or is a order of operations where the Greenbelt Advisory Commission would need to give pass a resolution indicating to the Parks Advisory Commission that they are not entertaining funding this project without PAC weighing in first, which is what happened. We brought the Russell Oxbow to you all for consideration once the Greenbelt Advisory Commission had passed a resolution declining to make a recommendation from their funds at that time. Then it was brought to you for review, and then as it was so close and interconnected through the border-to-border trail with the park system, PAC recommended your portion of the millage proceeds be directed toward that acquisition in partnership with Washtenaw County. So that structure still is retained in these revisions.
So we wouldn't buy we might contribute, but we wouldn't end up being the final owners of parkland that's outside of the city limits.
It's possible, as Marshall is an example as well, to be an owner of city parkland outside the official city boundaries.
Okay.
And that is the description of the city limits in the Greenbelt district is more to distinguish the limitations on the use of the Greenbelt funds, because they cannot come within the city limits, rather than the reverse of Parks Advisory Commission monies being used outside the city limits. So
Okay.
it's meant to describe more of a one-way restriction there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Great question.
Anne, go ahead.
I know this doesn't necessarily pertain to PAC, but I was a little bit curious about the administrative cost change that's being made. And it looks like there was a 6% limit, and now it looks like there's no limit. Is that right? Like,
Correct.
There's
So
no
that,
fixed number.
yeah, we're removing the fixed cap. So what that does is align us with every other permanent land conservation, municipal permanent land conservation agency in the area, in the state, really. There's no other millage funded conservation program that has an administrative cap like that. And again, going back to 2003, when there was a lot of community discussion about what does the Greenbelt look like, how is it run, et cetera, the 6% was set in place to make sure that people understood the vast majority of the funds were going to be going toward acquisitions. And we've generally maintained that cap. It is over the life of the millage. It is not year to year, but on year to year basis, we have had some years that have come in at 4%, and we've had other years come in at 7 or 8% of expenditures being on admin. So what this does is it removes the cap and allows us to grow accordingly with the mature program that we are now responsible for. Back in 2003, 6% may have been the responsible number, but as our liabilities, which is the number of conservation easements the city is party to, has only increased over time, we have more and more duty to annually monitor those. And we also are trying to be on the innovative fringe with some of the things that I presented on at a prior PAC meeting, which was the Greenbelt's Buy, Protect, Sell initiative. Those are extremely complex acquisitions that result in less permanent land protected on the map, but create these multitude of other benefits, many of them social. So we're trying to both innovate and maintain our existing portfolio of responsibilities. And ultimately, over the course of the 30 years, the 6% was not going to allow us to successfully do that. So we're removing that to align with the county's programs, the several township millage funded programs that exist, et cetera, that don't have any administrative cap.
Is there an anticipated upper limit? I know the goal is to you said is to preserve between 7 and 10,000 at the end of the 30 years. Is it anticipated that you'd go for another millage? Would you continue to increase the amount of Greenbelt land that's preserved, or would it be like we kind of hit some upper bound and then we kind of stay there, and then it's a matter of only administering that land?
That's $1 million question right there, Commissioner Marson. We're not sure. I think there's going to be a lot of conversations among city leadership, city council at that time, the community, about what does success look like and whether the original vision constitutes success and whether we met that mark. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there will be a large list of conservation easements that the city holds in perpetuity. And so we will need to maintain our funding levels to at least monitor and enforce those agreements forever, which is the term of a conservation easement for the ones that the city is acquiring. So to date, we have 45 conservation easements held by the city. So if we anticipate that getting upwards of maybe to the 75 mark, that's a very big program relative to others in our community. So that's a lot of liabilities to maintain long-term.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Remy, you
Great
had
questions.
mentioned that you have a resolution prepared on this. I don't think that we have received a draft resolution on this yet, but I know that we'd be willing to consider it perhaps at next month's meeting. I don't know if that's acceptable, or if timing constraints would get in the way of that. So far for today, we had listed this as a presentation, but depending on whether PAC members are comfortable proceeding with the resolution today, we can certainly discuss that.
Is that your proposal? Because it's very short.
It's very short and sweet. This aligns with what the Greenbelt Advisory Commission passed last Thursday. We went to the Greenbelt Advisory Commission with the same expectation that we were going to be having a discussion on any clarifying points they had associated with the revisions, and not necessarily anticipating a recommendation to be made. But after the hour or so long discussion, they did proceed to make a motion.
I see. So this is the resolution.
Yes.
With just
It's
a motion
as simple as that.
the revisions that we have seen. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So that, and again, I'm not trying to, we are okay. We are on track to take these ordinance revisions to city council if you recommend them tonight in February. If not, we would wait until late March once you've had a chance later in February to convene again and ask any final questions that you have.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying that. Ruth and then Rachel, go ahead.
I don't necessarily see an advantage to waiting, so if we decide to go ahead, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Oh, Rachel, was that your comment as well?
Yes, I'm happy to move that comment to a second.
All right.
And I'm happy to second, you can be the mover.
Well, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on accepting the revisions to chapter 42? Hearing none, all those in favor. Oh, Anne, did you have a comment before that?
I just had one more question, actually. I think the part about the criteria for selecting land does the LAC criteria change? You know, the group that we all sit on. Are we
No.
still using the same rubric?
We're still using the same rubric, and again, that's an indication to the desire to build confidence within the community about the use of these funds for the Greenbelt purposes. I think everyone had great confidence in the parkland acquisition systems that had been built and were in place up to that point in 2003, which is why they're not specified here. But on the Greenbelt side, lacking a system, they built the scaffolding for what the scoring would contain.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. Any further discussion on the pending motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. That was our sole presentation for today. So we are moving right along to reports. Remy, I believe that the manager's report falls to you this month.
And I apologize. This is Juliet. I just wanted to, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to mention that agenda items 8 and 9 should actually be 7A and 7B. I apologize for the mistake there.
No problem. You got it. Thank you so much. So Remy, we'll go to you for the manager's report.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So I'll keep this brief. The budget process will begin So soon, or it has begun, so anticipate a thorough update from Josh in February. Staff are preparing for the summer with registration starting in early April. On the oak wilt front, the trees, if you all weren't aware, at Bird Hills Nature Area, there was a confirmed case of oak wilt in August 2023. And since then, we have been working as expeditiously to remediate that site so that it does not spread throughout the park. So that includes the removal of 55 red oak trees within the treatment perimeter. So that red oak removal work has just begun as of yesterday. They are about 20% of the way through, and they anticipate they will be wrapping up by the end of next week. So for noise out at Bird Hills Nature Area, that's very likely what you're encountering if you go for a walk. The silver lining is that the city has a partnership with Urban Ashes to use what salvageable timber there is out at the site to repurpose it for future use. And then finally, the bicentennial kickoff is this Friday at the Michigan Theater. If you all aren't aware, the Bicentennial Committee, partnering with Destination Ann Arbor, has put together an event at Michigan Theater to celebrate the city's 200th anniversary. So the event is January 19th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Michigan Theater. Tickets are $50 a person, proceeds going to Ann Arbor's legacy projects, and the public can purchase them and find out more at annarbor.org/A200 kickoff. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Questions for Remy? All right, moving on, committee reports. I guess Anne, will go to you for the environmental committee. Anything this time?
We haven't met since our last PAC meeting.
All right, thank you. And I think we have nothing from RAC today. Other committees that I'm missing? All right, perfect. Moving right along. We've got a bunch of new business in the form of resolutions this time. I'm seeing 4 on here. And the first 3 of them, Scott, are yours. So you can, I guess, take them in whichever order you like. Take it away.
Okay, well, I'm going to take them in the order they are printed here. So the first one I have is a resolution to recommend approval of a golf cart lease with Golf Cars Plus. The total of the lease per year is 100. This is going to give you a little bit of sticker shock. Remember, there are 104 golf carts that we are leasing, $159,210 per year. Should I read the resolution? I think, did we share it? Did we share this resolution with you? Yeah.
I think we just need, a sentence or two on why we think we need to renew the lease. And
well, it was put out to bid. We had 2 companies give us quotes on leases for these golf carts, 104 golf carts for the 2 golf courses. After reviewing the bids, it was determined Golf Cars Plus had the best, most responsible bid and offered everything that we were looking for in the golf cars. And we negotiated, well, they gave us a price and we thought it was a fair price. And that's the $159,210.
What do we
It is pretty close, a little bit above what we paid. I think the last lease was 4 years. So it was a little bit above what we paid 4 years ago. And if you remember, 4 years ago, everything was a lot less expensive. So all in all, not a bad bid. And I think the new lease is for 5 years. From it'll go until the end of 2028.
Great. Questions for Scott? Or a motion? Rachel, go ahead.
I'd be happy to make a motion here.
All right, Rachel is a motion to approve. Is there a second? Vincent? Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye or raising your hand. All opposed, say no. All right, motion carries. Thanks very much. I guess we'll move on to the Riverside parking lot lease.
Yes, the next resolution is I don't know if it's a renewal. This is a lease that we've had with the University of Michigan before. It's a lease agreement. The university has requested continued use of 18 parking spaces along Canal Street that is on Riverside Park. The use of those spaces is during the week, during the day, not during the times when most people are wanting to use Riverside Park, which is in the night and on the weekends. And the university is agreeing to pay a sum of money that increases every year. And this year, the sum is $14,543 for a net of, or a average of $807.94 per spot. The lease agreement has a 2.5% annual increase built in, and it goes in 5 years with an option to renew one successive 3-year term after that.
All right, and these spots are located sort of down that road behind
Behind the Kellogg Eye Center,
right.
Canal Street, yeah.
Oh, that's right, Kellogg. I mix those up sometimes. Sorry about that. All right, questions for Scott on that resolution? Or a motion? We would entertain that as well.
I move that we approve the resolution.
All right, thank you. That's a motion. Is there a second? Rachel, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signal by saying aye or raising your hand. All opposed, say no. All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Scott, I guess we'll move on to the third one.
Our final resolution is to recommend approval of an amended 5-year lease agreement with the Ann Arbor Public Schools for Eber-Bach Cultural Arts Center. I've heard it pronounced Eber-Bach and also Eber-Bach with the silent. This is a continuing lease. We've had this lease in place for a number of years. The lease agreement is for $1 per year, with the public schools putting in money for continued improvements at the building.
Great. And I think Josh was telling me that is a very popular building with the extracurricular programming there, that it's used many, many days of the year.
Yes. In fact, my wife and I took tango lessons there while we were preparing for our wedding.
Excellent. Any questions for Scott about this resolution? Or a motion?
I'll move to
Thank you.
support this.
Is there a second?
And I too have taken many classes there.
That's awesome. Vincent, I saw your hand for the second. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye or raising your hand. All opposed, say no. All right, thank you. The motion carries. Scott, thanks very much for all of your work on all of those agreements. You got a lot done. At last, we've got Hillary here to talk about approval of a professional services agreement for architecture services this time. I think we saw something similar for different services last month. This one is for architecture.
Yeah, last month was engineering. So this is a similar thing for architecture. Essentially, it's a contract with 3 different firms. The contracts are all the same, so it's for a period of 5 years with an option to renew for an additional 2 years. And each of those years have a fiscal cap of $300,000, which nothing is guaranteed. There's no guarantee they will get any work, but that just sets a limit. And so it's basically pre-qualifying architecture firms to work for us. And that, just like engineering, it helps us be more efficient, react more quickly to things, because this process of, going out, soliciting proposals, interviewing, hiring, getting people through council, it takes a lot of time. So it allows us to be more nimble, especially on the smaller projects. And historically, sometimes we have one firm end up with a slightly larger project, and then we can hit that ceiling sometimes. So we did look to increase that this time up to the 300,000. I don't expect us to hit it most years, but it gives us flexibility since we are looking out at a 5-year time frame, and some unknowns of what will be coming down the pipeline. Of the 3 firms, one of them is Hubble, Roth and Clark, also known as HRC, that we've worked with. They were on our last cycle of standing contracts. There's also 2 firms that are newer to working for us. That's A3C Collaborative Architecture, a local firm here in town. They do a lot of institutional work, a lot of work with university, nonprofits. And then In Toto Studio is a newer firm, also based here in town, and we're excited about their work. It's a small office with some expats from a high design firm, but because they have low overhead, they've been doing a lot of park work and a lot of nonprofit work and have some really great design skills. So we're excited about continuing our relationship with HRC and trying out some of these other new firms for, some of the upcoming projects. So it's exciting.
Thank you. Can you remind us what the previous cap was, now that we're raising it to 300?
Yeah, I believe the previous was 150, and we did hit that several times with both engineering and architecture, where we had to kind of pause and wait till the next fiscal year started before we could do one of those projects or ask for an amendment to increase. Though the previous cycle was only 3 years long, so this is extending that to 5 years. And that's really because it is a time-intensive process for us, and it allows us a little more time to develop those relationships with those firms. So that's really why, because things, we all know cost increased over the last, 4 years or so with the pandemic. It gives us some flexibility, but again, nothing's guaranteed. I don't see us spending $900,000 on architecture every year. We don't have that budget. It allows us flexibility if there's certain projects that are coming in that are well suited for one firm. Maybe it makes more sense that they'll get more of that work. But because we don't always know what we're getting, it just creates a lot of flexibility. And the firms themselves provide like an array of services, array of experience. So I think we'll have some good options to compare against.
Thanks. Anne, go ahead.
In preparing for this, you have these firms submit information to you, and then do you actually interview the firms, or what's the procedure for selecting 3 that you have?
Yeah, so we submitted a request for proposals. 9 different architecture firms submitted proposals to us. And then we had a selection committee of myself, Adam Furco, and then our plan review official, who's a licensed architect. So the 3 of us went through each proposal. We had a scoring system, and then we had what we called a short list. And we scored everyone without looking at fees. So kind of just qualifications. And then with the short list, we opened up fee proposals. That allowed us to see the array of, certain firms cost more money than others. And of that, we went ahead and interviewed 6 firms. And then we felt like out of those 6, these 3, provided us a wealth of, options for any types of projects that come down the pipeline, an array of fee options as well. So that's kind of the process that we went through.
Other questions for Hillary? All right, or a motion to approve the resolution?
For the resolution?
All right, thanks, Anne. Is there a second? Rachel. All right, motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye or raising your hand. All opposed, say no. All right, the motion carries. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, we have come to the end of our robust resolution agenda today, and have arrived at our second public commentary period. Is there anyone on the phone?
We have no callers for public commentary.
All right, thank you very much. That being the case, communications are in your packet, and this may be a record. We stand adjourned at 4:42. Thank you all for being here with us today. We appreciate it. See you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.